Hey everybody, happy March 22nd, 2025. This is Across the Pitch post-game show. I rushed back from the stadium to sign on to get to the post-game show. I believe Jose Nunez is going to try to join us as well. He's on the West Coast right now with Mark Kelkenberg, who you've seen on the show a few times. Todd, Jillian, Kyle, all of them are currently at the stadium right now, waiting for Bradley Carnell to join the press conference. He's actually running late today, later than usual. Usually when you're at home, you can kind of get the coach in there fairly quick, 10, 15 minutes, but it seems like they're running late today. Um, and then after that, they're going to talk to players. So we'll see Todd or them join on after a little bit. But right now, the Philadelphia Union have just earned a win at home against St. Louis City. I was at the stadium, like I said, for the first 4 or 5 minutes. I drove home at around halftime so I can come back here. Overall, I think if you're looking at this from a bounce back perspective, it's good they pull off the win. You could not go to Miami with a 2-game losing streak, especially at home. It would have just been a very bad shift in momentum, especially after what you've built over the first 3 weeks of the season. Secondly, obviously you're at home. You want to make sure that this is a winning environment. I haven't been to Super Park yet this year. This is my first game of the season. I remember plenty of times last season. I probably went to a dozen or so games last year, and the environment wasn't that great last year. Granted, the team wasn't that great last year either. And not to say that the Philadelphia Union are great right now. I don't think I'm ready to call them that word just yet. But they're 4-1. They have put together some pretty solid performances. And it's clear that the fans are starting to recognize that. And that stadium today was as energetic as I've seen it in quite some time. I'm going to also bring some comments here as they join the show. Evan joins us today, says, I'll take that grinded out 1-0 win with the pieces we were missing. And I think, Evan, that's a great point right there. And then, excuse me as I'm looking at my phone to try to share out the links and everything for tonight's show. I think back on last year's game against Portland. You had basically your C squad out there, not a whole lot of depth, not a whole lot of options, and you ended up pulling a win in Portland. Now, if you joined us on our show last week, you knew that we had said, I don't know what to expect from the backup rotation from Bradley Carnell's team. I even talked to people who were at the stadium today, and I said maybe a draw would probably be what I'm optimistically expecting tonight. You're still at home. You should still earn points, but I wasn't sure what to expect tonight out of that rotation. Let me pull up the lineup again real quick so that way we can kind of go over the starting 11 for tonight. We had a couple changes considering the absences in today's rotation. We had Andrew Rick in net, and if I think early on throughout these early post game shows that we've been wondering who is the backup for Andre Blake, because Andrew Rick was on the bench multiple times. Oliver Semley was seemingly MIA. We really weren't sure where Semley fit in this rotation, in this lineup right now. And as we saw tonight, Andrew Rick was a starter behind Andre Blake. So it's a pretty big statement, in my opinion, from Carnell saying, yeah, Rick's our backup. He's our number 2. I don't know what they're going to do with Semley. Are they going to move him? What are they going to do considering he's taking up an international spot? It's a pretty big spot to take up for your third backup, your third goalie. So we'll see moving forward if Andrew Rick's either, knocking wood, dealing with an injury or splitting time with Union 2. Will Semley get some time? I'm not sure. I'm not going to speculate. But for right now, it seems that Andrew Rick is the backup. In the back four, we had Wagner. Glavinovic makes his first start and gets his first Union goal, and obviously the only goal tonight. We have Glesnes as well. Olivier Mbaizo starts on the right. And then in the center, you had Vasilev and Lukic. Harried on the right with Olivier. Sullivan again on the left, which I've preferred him on the left anyway. Again, I thought he had a strong performance on the left. And then up top, you had Ua and then Damiani in place of Baribo tonight. Evan, also great point right here. I'm curious why Ali wasn't even on the bench tonight. Any insight? I was at the stadium, like I said, so I'm not entirely sure if there was some reason why Bedoya was not in the lineup at all, either on the bench or the starting rotation. So if I come across that or see it, I will be sure to post it up real quick. And I'm going to look on as well on Twitter to see if maybe anyone mentioned that yet. I'm hoping that somebody at the press conference will say something like that regarding Alejandro Bedoya. And actually, right here from Matt DeGeorge, he was told that Alejandro Bedoya is not an injury, and Bradley Carnell will address it post-game. So, again, it's going to be addressed post-game. We'll see in these next couple minutes what happened to Alejandro Bedoya, because I can't remember last time that Bedoya hasn't been at least on the bench, obviously when he's been healthy. So we'll see what happens there. Besides that, you have a new line of players in this rotation today. I think considering that change, considering the win was really, really strong today again, and we saw that to be a bit of an issue last week, I'm pretty pleased with the outcome, 1-0. However, I'm a bit, like not that happy because of the chances the Union probably missed on. I personally thought it could have been 2-0 in the first half. You see the red card get given, I think it was in the 66th or 67th minute, and you think, okay, are we going to see the old Union from before where they really struggle up a man? Or are we going to see this new type of attack when you're with that advantage? And personally, I thought St. Louis at times looked better when they were up a man, or down a man, rather. Excuse me. I was hoping that we'd see some more aggression and more attacking, more clinical finishes to make it 2-0, to make it 3-0, especially with Andrew Rick and net. I mean, you have a young keeper back there. You want to protect him as much as possible. And I was really hoping that they would finally just kind of put that second goal in to really shut the door right there. But that was not the case. But then again, you look at St. Louis's background so far this season. Look at their first 4 games. They had a 0-0 draw against Colorado. They had a 0-0 draw against San Diego. They had a 3-0 win against the LA Galaxy. And they had a 1-0 win against Seattle. No team has scored on them yet this year. And the Philadelphia Union were able to get one off a set piece where Glavinovic hit the header in, which was a great header for him. Great to see him contributing. But I hadn't really looked too much into St. Louis's season so far, and I'm like, wow, they haven't given up a goal in 1, 2, 3, 4 games. So for them to put in that goal of kind of end that streak for St. Louis, it's fantastic to see the Union do that. And you're up against a stingy defense. Fine, it might be tough to score on them, but again, you're at home. You really had a strong momentum overall throughout the match. You were the better team throughout the match. The first half alone had at least 2 or 3 chances. You probably should have put 2 goals in the back of the net. And again, as I said before, you were up a man with about a half hour to play. You should have been 2-0. But again, I'm not going to be too picky. Again, there's a lot of variables today in play. But if I'm looking at the statistics for tonight, the Philadelphia Union had 46.1% possession, rather. St. Louis was at 53.9% for the possession. Shot attempts, the Union had 18. Yellow cards, they were both split 3-3. Corner kicks, 6-5 in Union's favor. But Rick only had to make 1 save tonight. So even though you only had a 1-0 lead there, overall, it was nice to just have that Rick only had to make 1 attempt. So really quick, I want to bring up a comment here. Cole mentions a family issue. Cole, if you can expand on that at all, please feel free to comment. Obviously, I'm not listening to the press conference right now, so feel free to add into any extra comments that maybe Carnell is throwing in there. But as of right now, it looks like Bedoya was out today with a family issue. So, of course, we hope that everything's okay for Alejandro and his family, and he can be back in the lineup once everything's cleared out with that. So that's good. Thank you, Cole, for passing that along. Other news here, or not other news, other thoughts that I had tonight. You finally get to see Raffanello tonight. Again, you see Chris Donovan make an appearance as a substitution. If you're looking at, Cole said all he said was a family commitment. Okay, we'll leave it at that, then a family commitment. And again, hopefully everything's okay with it, and it's nothing more than just a commitment there. Now, if you're looking at the substitutions, we knew that there was not much to go with today regarding the Carnell's options. The lineup today, the subs that he made were Jeremy Raffanello for Ivan Glavinovic, and then Chris Donovan for Michael Ua. On the bench, you had Olney, Semle, Pariano, Kevin Sullivan, Isaiah LaFleur. We know he was hurt last year. He came back today for lineup. And then we had Stas and Vasquez on the sub. So not a whole lot of experience today. I mean, really, if you're talking about the first team, Kevin Sullivan's the most experienced first-team player out of that entire group of substitutions, which doesn't say a whole lot. Kyle adds a comment here saying they just said that it was a prior family obligation. Again, that's great. That's good to hear. That's nothing serious. Hopefully, it's just then an obligation, nothing more than that. So that's good to hear. Thank you guys for sharing that along. But you're looking at this bench is basically the entire U2 lineup on this bench. Again, only Donovan, Raffanello, Pariano, Sullivan, LaFleur, Stas, and Vasquez. So I don't blame Carnell for making the subs that he did. We were calling for Rafinel this past week and a half. We weren't really sure where he was going to fall into this lineup because we haven't seen him. He wasn't even on the bench on certain matches. I know Todd Lewis kind of highlighted that a few times in some of our post game shows, but we saw him on today. I wasn't overly impressed. By the time I got home, it was about the 65th minute. From what I saw, he didn't make any bad mistakes necessarily. So again, it's good to have them get on the field, at least get a half hour or so in and try to make an impact. But again, when you're looking at this rotation with a 1-0 lead, I don't think you can trust any of those players that I mentioned to be out there to hold that lead. We're going to get from Chris Donovan. He probably won't score a goal, but he's going to give you about 125%. He's going to press. He's going to make sure he can get to those tackles as best he possibly can. He's going to put an effort in. So I don't mind that. And again, Rafinello has experience with the first team. So putting him out there isn't exactly the worst thing in the world. But I would have liked to see Sullivan out there. I would like to see Pariano to see what they could do. But you're asking for a lot. And I think what we've seen so far from Carnell is he's making pretty smart substitutions overall. He's also making multiple substitutions. We've seen him use all the subs, 4 subs. So the fact that he only uses 2 tonight is probably telling you where he put his trust tonight into that starting 11, into those somewhat experienced younger players, and kind of just hold the fort down and figure it out here. Philadelphia Union fan joins us again tonight. Thank you for joining us this week. A good, solid game. Not too much to complain about. And no, I don't think so. I don't think you have a whole lot to complain about, especially with all those variables in play. I'd say the one thing I do want to highlight, and I know when I was listening to the game on the drive home, Dave Leno and Sebastian Latu kind of highlighted this. I thought Jacob Glessens had a pretty solid game. He was going up for the balls at the right times, really timing things well despite the wind, winning tackles, turning them over. I thought Jacob Glessens had a pretty solid game. Now, you could look at this 2 ways. Maybe he was just had a bad game against Nashville. It was windy against Nashville as well. I'd say it was probably almost more windy today against St. Louis. Maybe he was more accustomed to that environment. But I mean, you can maybe say that Makanya not being there might have had an impact on that as well. Just from having him being so experienced, maybe he felt like he had to do more. Maybe he felt more pressed with Makanya next to him, whereas Glavinovic was next to him, and Glessens looked much better, I think, from top to bottom for the entire 90 minutes. I thought Glessens had a pretty solid performance. So I'm not complaining at all. Like you said, Philadelphia Union fan, I'm pretty pleased with his performance. I thought Olivier in extended time looked solid. I thought him and Nathan Harriel did well on the right-hand side. We've seen last year the Philadelphia Union were very, very successful with Quinn Sullivan and Nathan Harriel on the right-hand side. Today, we see the pairing of Olivier and Nathan back and forth on the right. I thought they did solid. I'm glad to see Vasilev is kind of that backup for Danley now in that 6th position, right? I think a lot of us, when we looked at the missing players today, thought Danley John Jocks is not going to be there with Lukic. Lukic and Danley have been playing so well together. Do you really want to test this disruption for 90 minutes? And I thought Vasilev came in there and did a great job pairing with Lukic. And again, it's similar to how Lukic and Danley have played. Lukic and Vasilev looked pretty comfortable together overall. I mean, if anybody noticed something different, please, share it in the comments. But I thought they played pretty solid. And now we know Vasilev obviously has experience with Carnell too. He's bringing that experience in from the past. So I thought that was a smart idea to put him there compared to somebody else. I thought really across the board with the substitutions for this starting 11, I thought it was a pretty solid job. Damiani, again, filling pretty big shoes this week for Baribo. Thought he did fine. Had a couple opportunities, especially with the set pieces and the throw-ins we saw from Nathan Harrell. I thought he got in the mix. I wouldn't say he had a fantastic performance, but he did solid. At least put pressure in the box. And again, I thought the Union could have probably put 2 in that first half, but what are you going to do? It's a solid win regardless. So the Philadelphia Union now are 4-0-1 to start the season. I don't think anybody has any real complaints about this team. Again, Philadelphia Union fan brings up a comment here, and I'll join that in a second. Kyle, real quick, says Mbaizo seemed lost at times out there. I mean, that could go to just being rusty too, right? He really hasn't seen extended time. I thought he did okay. Again, there was parts where I was obviously driving home, so maybe I missed that, and he had a worse second half. I thought the first half he did okay, but um, it doesn't seem like Olivier is going to be a regular piece of this rotation, which is fine with me. I think the people in front of him, like Nathan Harriel and Danley and Vasilev, should be playing over Olivier, but at least he wasn't making those mental mistakes we've seen Olivier make in years past, where he just looks completely just lost for 90 minutes. So even at times is a little bit better than what we've seen Olivier from the past. Philadelphia Union fan mentions here, we see Miami next week in Miami, so it's definitely going to game. I'm looking forward to watching the schedule with the way we've been playing as of lately. Miami's a big test for us next week. I think we all know the caliber that they have. We've seen this team play against Miami before, even in Super Park, and just look starstruck, look out of sorts. We all can remember the game that they had the 2-man advantage, and they still blew it. And I'm fairly certain again that was against Miami. Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. We saw the Leagues Cup game where Miami was here, and we looked like we were just more impressed by Messi and company than rather playing a game of soccer. So I'm a bit nervous to go down to Miami. I think me personally, I have always kind of felt like Miami was a bit of a tough rival for us, especially when Higuain was there. We always kind of butt heads with them. We remember Martinez and Higuain going head to head in that photograph that we saw from years prior, when they're just head to head there in one of Higuain's first games against the Union. So I just don't personally like Miami that much, and now some more with Messi and company, it just makes me want to beat them more. So I'm pretty excited so far, and I'll look at Miami's schedule real quick to see how they've looked so far. They have played a handful of games. They've also been playing in the I believe they've played in CONCACAF as well. So the last game for Miami was a 2-1 win against Atlanta. They beat Cavalier 2-0 as well. They beat Charlotte 1-0. They had the same win against Cavalier 2-0 on the 6th. They beat Houston 4-1. They beat Kansas City 3-1. So they've been playing pretty well to start the season, as expected. Philadelphia Union fan says, I don't know if you saw it, but Miami likes to put hands on people. We saw, the goalie's name is escaping me right now, from Guzman from Atlanta, getting shoved into the net last season. So I'm ready for some tussle. If you guys remember our show from week 2 or week 1, a few people had asked us, like, what does this team look like without Martinez? Do they have the same scrappy mentality? Do they have the person who's going to go out there and get in somebody's face? And I know Todd Lewis mentions, well, Lukic is Serbian. That's like, why can't he be the one who kind of takes that enforcer role out there? Philadelphia Union fan mentions, yeah, that's why they're currently on a rest for this week. So I'm excited to see Miami against us in terms of a physicality standpoint. We have Glavinovic. I hope that he starts again. I liked what he brought with Glesnes this week. I think if you're Carnell, Macania did his job, but we have to have more experience, more reliability in the back. And you saw how well Glesnes played. I think you have to put him back in there. You're going to have Nathan Harriel starting again next week, I'm assuming. I prefer him over Frankie Westfield for obvious reasons. We are the experience alone, what Nathan brings in the verticality game on set pieces, as well as even just defensively. There was one moment late in the match, I think it was around the 80th minute, where the ball was kind of shooting back towards the midfield, and Nathan Harriel just went up and got it and headed back in St. Louis's side of the field. So we know what Nathan Harriel can bring. He's obviously very talented. I would much rather see him on the field over Westfield and Olivier. That goes without saying. So Nathan's aggression out there on the right side, Lukic's ability there. I don't know if Danley's back yet. I'm sure somebody knows in the comments, or Jose, if Danley will be back for that game. But I just want to see a team that isn't going to back down from that big of an opponent, and not going to take off their foot off the pedal from that killer instinct. And I want to bring up your comment right here, Philadelphia Union fan. I'm talking about this year. There's been 3 instances this year where they put their hands on people and gotten red cards. Well, in that case, let's get in their heads, right? Let's kind of get them agitate and get under his skin and try to get those red cards back for Miami. Because if I would like to see the Union up a man again and try a different approach with a one-man advantage. Again, I wasn't really pleased today with how they looked up a man. I think almost right after the red card, they had an opportunity on net. It did get called offside, but still, it just seemed like you don't seem like you have the advantage right now. So if we can get the Miami team in some foul trouble and some card trouble, that'd be fantastic to really at least limit them as much as possible. But again, I want to see the tenacity out of this team and how much aggression they can show against a bigger opponent. And I do think Lukic, Glesnes, Harriel, even Damiani, Vasilev, like these new players come in and make a statement and show the Philadelphia Union fans and their teammates what type of an energy they're going to bring in a more hostile environment against a tougher opponent. If you guys remember the LAFC game from I don't even know, 4 or 5 years ago, Jose Martinez comes in and he makes a name for himself. He had that bloody lip and everything. That's the kind of performance I want to see from somebody this coming week. Who's going to get in the scrap of things? Who's going to really try to make a name for themselves this coming week against Miami? And if Philadelphia Union fan mentions, depending on schedule, I don't think we're going to see everyone again. No, I know some players are coming back. Some players are still on international duty. Again, I'm not entirely sure. I don't keep track of that nearly as enough. I've also been in the middle of March Madness with college basketball, so my focus has been kind of torn on that. Once college basketball ends for good, I'll be more focused on the Union. But for those of you who know me and have watched my show long enough, you know how big of a college basketball fan I am. So right now, I'm fully March Madness for a bit, and then kind of shifting back and forth between MLS. But if anybody has any thoughts on or comments on this game, any players that stood out, please share in how you felt tonight overall with this performance. Again, if you're looking at Miami and the Union head-to-head, I'm trying to see if head-to-head games. Miami beat us 3-1 on September 14th. Inter Miami beat us 2-1 on June 15th. Inter Miami beat us 4-1 on the 15th of August in 2023 in Leagues Cup. We beat Miami 4-1 on the 24th in 2023, and then Miami beat us 2-0. So if my math's mathing up correctly, in the last 5 games, Miami has beaten us 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5 of the last 5 games. We have fallen to Miami. That's just not good. There was a time when we were much more balanced between the two of them, and we could kind of go back and forth and split the season series there. And to lose 4 out of the last 5 games against Inter Miami is not giving me a whole lot of promise for this coming week personally. But again, new coach, new system. I'm not going to rule this team out just yet. I so far, so good. They haven't let me down that much too yet. Last week, I feel like was more of an anomaly than who this team really is. So we'll see next week. We'll see. If you can get a draw in Miami, that's a win. A couple comments here again. Cole says, I was impressed with Nate playing the 10. I thought Nate looked pretty sharp. I thought he was good on the ball. I thought he was, aggressive in the attack. I love his throw-in. It reminds me of Shannon Williams back in the day with the long throw. So I like to see him back on the field. Again, Frankie Westfield, I saw him playing with the United States team today a bit. Congratulations to him, and I'm glad he's getting that recognition. But it's great to see Harriel playing out there and such a young player, Nathan Harriel, and he's still improving and still growing in front of us every single week. So again, I thought he had a really solid game. And Michael Wolfinger joins us again tonight. Glesnes was back to form. Absolutely agree. Again, I thought Jacob Glesnes looked like the Jacob Glesnes of old. And again, is that just a game we want to kind of erase from our memory against Nashville? Maybe. Is it because Makani is on next to him and he has somebody that he might be more comfortable with or more reliable with? Sure, maybe. I think you have to see what Glesnes and Glavinovic are going to do now moving forward. You're going to start Glavinovic anyway because of what you brought him over for and the type of caliber player he is, but it's time now to build that relationship with Glesnes and Glavinovic, just the way we saw with Glesnes and Elliott for multiple years. You have to start building that camaraderie between the two players. Philadelphia Union fan says, okay, I had to say this one thing. Can we please make Center City, Philadelphia powerhouse again? I'm just going to leave it at that. I know we're not talking about about college basketball. Listen, I do like that. There was a tough year for Philadelphia sports from the basketball perspective. The Sixers are just an absolute mess, and if you know me, you know I'm a big Sixers fan, and they have been hard to watch. But yeah, college basketball scene for Philadelphia is not good right now. St. Joe's is an average A10 team. Villanova was extremely disappointing. They just fired Kyle Neptune. Drexel and LaSalle, they're kind of typically in the bottom. Penn didn't make it out of the Ivy League this year. So I like that you bring up some college basketball there. I'm hoping that, or Temple, I forgot Temple entirely, but I mean, they have been kind of irrelevant for a few years. But I'm hoping the college basketball scene in Philadelphia improves soon because Philadelphia is a great basketball town. Cole says here, Carnell did say Ian started getting tight in his hamstring, which led to the sub, but hopefully it was just some tightness and nothing more. Yeah, and also Sebastian Letou mentioned this as well on the radio. So Cole, thank you for bringing this up. He hasn't played a full 90 yet, right? We haven't seen him extended that long before, so you're still kind of getting him back into playing into the game stamina and all that. So his we'll see what his ability is for 90 minutes. So. I'm not too worried about it just yet. I'm glad they were at least precautious with it and brought him out and didn't push him any further. Michael says, I feel like every time Bruno got the ball, he was being held, damage to Judge, but would love to see Baribo and Bruno. You know what, Michael? That kind of reminds me of last year, right? We didn't get to see Carranza and Baribo together. Now we've seen how pretty, solid Baribo and Ua have been, right? Baribo's been playing great. Ua kind of got into a better form as that season ended last year, and he's been playing solid this season, I think. He's not great, but solid. But it's time now to see other pairings, Baribo and Bruno. I want to see how they look together. I'm hoping it's going to be a positive outcome, right? Especially with the caliber that Damiani is bringing into this Union team. The two of them together could be absolutely phenomenal. So I'm really excited to see that as well. And, you're going to see that where they're getting held up pretty good and roughed up pretty good up there, especially when the defenses really want to get under their skin. Philadelphia Union fan mentions, did you know in MLS Season Pass you can watch 4 games at one time? I did not know that. I would like to try to do that, get an iPad or a computer going and split them all up. So thank you for sharing that. I'll have to get into that more. I don't watch nearly enough of other MLS teams, and that's my fault entirely. But again, I'm so torn with being a parent and college basketball. So now that the seasons for college hoops is officially over, I'm going to try that. So thank you, and I'll try that out next week. And again, it's exciting times right now at Super Park again. You have now won 2 of 3 games in Chester. That's a good sign for what's to come. Also, I don't know if people can see on the camera, for anybody who was not at the stadium, they did have this little scarf as a handout. I'll kind of put it on the camera and back it up a little bit here. Like that. They were handing these out at the entrance for tonight's match. So I was able to snag a couple of these for myself and my daughter. So I don't know if you guys can see this. It's a pretty lightweight scarf, kind of like a summer scarf, not one of those heavier ones. So pretty cool handout that they had there. No complaints there. I did try the Kai tie. I think Philadelphia Union fan, you mentioned last week the Kai tie I had today at the Union Yards. I did not expect it to be $20 for a fruity drink, but I spent $20 on it, so it is what it is there. I actually had asked, because I had my daughter with me. I said, hey, like, how much is it for a mocktail, right? Like a non-alcoholic drink. And she said, oh, it's still going to be $20. So I was like, I'm not paying $40 for 2 drinks. I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen. So it was solid. It kind of tasted like a Malibu Bay Breeze, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. It wasn't fantastic, but it was a solid drink. I would not pay $20 for it again. If anybody hasn't gotten it yet, just make a Malibu Bay Breeze and you're pretty much going to get the same thing. But Union Yards was packed today. It was a really windy day out there. The Sons of Ben tailgate wasn't overly crowded, and that might be why, because of the excessive wind. So Union Yards was pretty packed. TVs were going for multiple games, which was nice, and it was just nice to see Super Park packed again. In general, I thought the turnout was great, especially for the weather being what it was. It wasn't freezing, but it wasn't exactly pleasant to be out there at times. Michael says, did we like this ref better than last week? I thought he was okay. I think he was a little card happy. I don't really like that. I don't like it when refs are overly involved. with the cards, especially. If you're going to call fouls and you're going to call it a tight game, that's one thing. You obviously don't want things to get out of hand where player safety is at risk there too. But I mean, I think he even gave the coach a card for the St. Louis coach. So I don't like when they get too card happy. It really impacts the game significantly with multiple players. I think Olivier had a card. I'm gonna look on it real quick to see who had a card for the Union if my phone will work quickly enough here for me to bring it up. Bear with me 1 second, everybody, as I am going through this real quick. Key events here on ESPN app. Glavinovic got a yellow card in the 26th minute. We had Olivier Mbaizo got a yellow card in the 58th minute. Andrew Rick got a yellow card in the 81st minute. And then the rest were given to Philadelphia, or rather St. Louis City players. So it's, again, I don't like the over excessive use of the cards. The same way, I think of the same way with technical fouls in basketball. It's just something that limits a player's ability to then perform a certain way, in my opinion. At the same time, because of those cards, I was actually surprised that Olivier wasn't taken out. I believe, they only made 2 subs. So I was a bit concerned that, okay, if Olivier makes a stupid foul, then we're down to 10 men as well. And it's 10v10 with St. Louis kind of playing okay with up a man. So I was actually a little bit surprised that they didn't do something to get Olivier out of the match. Now, again, I mentioned already that Glavinovic was taken out for Raffanello. I believe Cole mentioned that it was for a hamstring tightness, so at least we got one player out, but I was a bit surprised to not see Olivier removed, just considering the card was there. But as I said before, you don't really have a whole lot of options, and this is where you'd probably see Bedoya, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't want to compare him to Warren Creavalle because I don't think that's fair to Alejandro, but this is when you bring in that experienced player who's good for about 20, 30 minutes. He's going to be a defensively stout player like Warren Creavalle was and just ride the game out. Leon Flock was kind of somebody who I wanted to see in that role too as well, that Creavalle style player. And if you guys don't remember Warren Creavalle, he would come in at like a 1-0 lead and just shut the game down, or try to shut the game down at least years ago. So I was kind of hoping for that, but again, there wasn't a whole lot of options on the bench, and I don't think you would trust any of those to really be in that position at that point. Some more comments here. Philadelphia Union fan mentions, yes, multi-screening with one screen similar to ESPN. That's great. I'll have to check that out. Michael again agrees. So many cards. Jeffrey Shelton joins us, a frequent commenter. Thanks for joining us tonight, Jeffrey. That's a really cool scarf. I'm not in love with the baby blue, but pretty cool. And then again, I'll share the scarf for those of you who didn't see it clearly the first time. It is that Union baby blue with the Thunderbolt on the side of it. It has just the snake and the Union logo on the back there. I'll kind of extend it out this way. I went into the shop today. I can't get into the new kit. I'm sorry, I really can't. I know how they're trying to spin off the Bayou kit, which was the most impressive kit we've seen. Probably one of my favorite kits outside of the black Bethlehem Steel kits from 8-9 years ago, whatever it was at this point. But I was in the Union shop today. A lot of cool stuff. I saw the blue kit with the yellow electric bolt running through it, and I just can't get into it. I think it looks cool on some people. Maybe some people would disagree with me. I know there's some mixed feelings on it, but I do like the baby blue. When I was younger, watching sports, I loved North Carolina Tar Heels. So the baby blue reminds me of that North Carolina blue. It's just that yellow mixed into it with it just doesn't do it for me. If anything, it kind of reminds me of the Philadelphia Eagles. They had that blue and yellow jersey back when Kevin Curtis was on the Eagles. I don't even know now at this point, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever it was. McNabb was still on the team with that. Actually, no, more than that then. Probably 12 years ago at this point. So it reminds me of that color scheme. And again, people mention here the same, template and stuff like that. So it is what it is. I prefer just that dark blue Union kit with that little zigzag on the front. I have that. I have a Martinez version of that. So I prefer that. we'll see how this kit grows on me. Jeffrey mentions $40 for 2 drinks is a little too much. Honestly, $20 for 1 drink is too much. I don't know if whoever's familiar with South Jersey, but I went to the Jug Handle Inn in South Jersey, a couple days ago, and for 2 mixed drinks, it was like $17. So the Philadelphia Union Yards is absolutely ripping us off. Todd Lewis and Kyle Almany have joined me here. Todd and Kyle, hello, gentlemen. How are you doing? I see you're in the Philadelphia Union's dining room.
Yeah.
So nice and quiet out there. I have to ask you guys, what was the spread tonight for the buffet?
Good, Kyle. I got to take this jacket off. It's too hot in here.
It's too hot.
It's a good question. It was, oh my gosh, it was corn on the cob, mac and cheese, and I think brisket.
Wow.
And cookies. That's
M&M cookies.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay, guys, I've been talking to the show. I've basically covered as much as I possibly can by myself. The commenters have been great as well. I would love to know your thoughts individually, both of your thoughts on the overall performance. For me, I'm happy with the win. I'm not entirely thrilled that they couldn't kind of put an emphasis, a 2-0, 3-0 win. So I want to hear your thoughts on this one. Todd, I guess we'll start with you.
You really want to hear my thoughts?
Oh, yeah? Let me hear it. Come on, Todd. Let's go. I know you're out hiking today. You should have some good vibes and stuff,
Not watching that game.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the most boring games I've watched in a very long time. I mean, what are the stats? I mean, I was telling Kyle, I was just counting down, waiting for the game to end. And in the second half, I think the Union only had 2 shots. Trying to pull it up here on the computer. 3 shots, 1 shot on target in the second half. I mean, it was so bad. Again, I mean, I think this is a story of congrats to the Union for getting a win. And I think this is a huge win just looking at their schedule coming up. Down in Miami, home against Orlando City, then away to New York City, then home against Atlanta. And this was a much-needed win for this team after they had lost 3-1 to Nashville last week. And by the way, I don't know if you talked about this, Mike. Did you see this, Kyle? I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but Pro pretty much came out and said that, that the referees in last week's game got every single call incorrect.
Correct. Yeah, I saw that.
I saw that. It's absolutely embarrassing.
And so, I mean, obviously that doesn't change the fact. And yeah, that's cool that you. Oh my God, is that true? Sorry. Oh, I thought it said the Flyers were up 7-2 over the Dallas Stars. They have the Flyers game on. It says 2-0. I don't know why it says a 7 there. Sorry. But the yeah, I mean, like that apology or that correction of sorry, we messed up and everything doesn't do the Union any good. But this was needed for the Union, this win, because of that tough schedule coming up. And yeah, it wasn't the most prettiest of games, but at the end of the day, it's 3 points. And Bradley Carnell, those players aren't going to complain about how they get the 3 points. It was a must-win game, and it's interesting to note that through 5 games now, the Union have tied their record in 2022, where they have set 12 points to start the season. So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the prettiest of soccer, and at the end of the day, 3 points are 3 points. But yeah, I thought the Union missed chances. Yes. They created chances. They just they couldn't find the ball in the back of the net. You had Quinn Sullivan there hitting the post, a lot of good combination play with Mikael Uhre and Damiani, and I think that's something Kyle's probably going to bring up just because of how well I thought those two played tonight for the very first time, partnering each other.
Yeah, no, I thought Uhre and Damiani really, really did a nice job up top. You could see, even though this is their first time playing in a MLS regular season competition, I thought the connection was there. You could see them playing off each other very well. I like the energy and the ability to create chances. I thought also, and I know that Bradley Carnell mentioned, I mean, St. Louis City's keeper tonight, Ben Lunt, he was on fire.
He was good.
I think, what did he have, 10 saves? Something like 9-10 saves on the night. I mean, there was 3 or 4 chances, especially in that first half. You could easily seen like a 3-0 game. But it is concerning, like Todd says, that they're not able to finish some of those plays too. I get that, but who knows what they're going to do now with Miami, Orlando, New York City, and then Atlanta coming up. I mean, those are 4 tough opponents, but at the end of the day, 12 points in 5 games, like Todd said, that's great to see. But
Sure.
at the same time, you give yourself a little cushion. But I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, besides just creating the chances, was the energy and the passion. You could tell that, like I was telling you earlier, in press box. I mean, they play like that last Sunday. Maybe they get a point. PKs aside, they definitely look like they learned from it this game and came out with a little bit more fire. Defensively, there's still some things here and there, but it was getting open at times. I thought that they did do a good job, even when there were chances and maybe a blunder here. The team kind of backed each other up, so that was also good to see. But still room for growth, and the season's early.
Well, I mean, I with regarding the defensive side of things, I'm glad they didn't give Rick too much to do tonight.
Right.
He was fairly like kind of out of the game for most of the time. So that was something that I was a bit concerned by because, and Todd, I talked about this earlier with Oliver Semle and Rick. Like, who's the backup behind Andre? Like, it's clearly Rick at this
It's
point.
clearly Rick.
Yeah.
And I thought he did fine in the few moments that he had to do. Now, Todd, I'm going to ask you this next question. One of the commenters had mentioned Olivier Mbaizo. I think I missed part of the game because I was driving home, so I couldn't physically see it. I thought he did okay in his extended performance. One commenter mentioned he looked a bit lost at times. What was your overall impression with Olivier, or maybe and also how Olivier played with Nathan on the right hand side?
Didn't really notice Olivier, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, that's what you want, right? You want a quiet game. So, I think your wingbacks, your defensive midfielders, if they have a quiet game, then that means that they did their position, they did their job. So yeah, that's what I would say about Olivier. But the one player that I would give a shout out to is Jacob Glesnes. I think that he rebounded really, really big from last week's performance against Nashville, where it was a tough game for him against Nashville, involved for all 3 goals that Nashville scored. And it looked like he was playing with an extra fire tonight, and maybe that was partially because of how poorly he played last week against Nashville, but also because of how many starters the Union had out in this game because of international duty. And so I think Jacob Glesnes was excellent tonight, winning back the ball, commending that back line. And that's what you want to see. I mean, that performance from Jacob Glesnes reminded you why he was a Defender of the Year candidate in 2022. I think he was Defender of the Year in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, hopefully we see more of tonight's performances from Jacob going forward. But again, going to Mbaizo, I thought it was pretty quiet, which is a good thing for a defender. And I don't think he really got beat too much. And if he did get beat, then people were there to recover for him. So, I mean, only 5 shots tonight by St. Louis, which tells you that they didn't really have too many chances to create tonight.
And Vince mentions right here they fought for every loose ball. I think there was one moment where Kai lost the ball and he immediately went and attacked it and got the ball right back. Kyle, I'm gonna ask you this kind of like a follow up with Glesnes. And again, this is something we talked about earlier in the show before you guys joined. I thought Glesnes had a great game, but how much is it Glesnes playing with Glavinovic and not Makanya that might be also leading to this? What? There's so many variables we have. Even somebody mentioned the wind and the weather. Like, the wind is hard to play in sometimes, especially when the ball's up in the air. So, Kyle, do you think maybe Makanya's absence and Glavinovic's presence might have been the reason why Jacob looked a bit more comfortable tonight?
Maybe. Somebody asked Carnell that too. Like, with Glavinovic's performance tonight. Where does that put? And basically, he just said it's good competition, coach speech, obviously. Great. But, I mean, the thing, again, getting back to Todd's point, maybe if Jacob tonight gets turned around, I thought the thing he didn't give up on the play. Or, like you said, Ian, there was times you could see Jan's quality, where he would recover, like Jacob would get beat and he'd pick him right up. So the partnership was there where sometimes – Oluwethu is out of position and he can't get back in time. So Maybe. I think it's a debate to have for sure. But again, it's just one game. So, one game compared to 4 games with them together, and then to Jacob and Olwethu's credit, they also have a clean sheet. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, I did like what I saw from those two tonight. I actually liked what I saw as a whole, and Todd brought it up, even when Biza was quiet, that's a good thing. And they picked each other up tonight, and there was a lot better communication, I thought, at times too. Even though, like I said earlier, there was still kind of some of those lapses overall.
Yeah, and we got to see, Indy in Danley's place tonight, right next to Lukic. I thought they played comfortable together. We already
Mhm.
know that Vasilev has that experience under Carnell, but it kind of goes back to what we have been talking about this season. It looks like Lukic has been playing with Danley for years, and tonight I thought maybe not the same, comparison. I thought they looked comfortable together. Todd, do you think that the pairing of Vasilev and Lukic was solid tonight? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again,
Yeah.
it just goes back to St. Louis only having 5 shots tonight, and a big part of that is because of I forget who brought up the comment. Vince, I think it was, just winning the loose balls, winning those 50-50 challenges, and it starts in the midfield with Jovan and Indiana. And yeah, of course, I think Indiana's probably more of an attacking player than he is a 6, but he did a role tonight and did it well, just like Nathan Harriel. Nathan joked after the game, yeah, that's probably the last time I'm going to play as a 10. But
It
look,
was somebody
this
mentioned in the comments he thought he did solid. Go ahead, Todd.
this reminds me of that Portland game from last year, right? Where the Union were down so many players. They go into Portland where they probably shouldn't have won, but players stepped up and they came away with a 3-1 win, I believe, out in Portland. And it's a difficult place to win. And again, I mean, you have 7 players out on international duty. You have 9 total players out. Marcus Anderson still out with that ankle injury. Alawatu Makanya picking up that red card last game. And so, yeah, this was a game for players to step up and say, hey, look, I am ready for a starting spot once people come back. And Bradley Cornell says it all the time that competition's good. I think his quote after the game was, I've had a difficult decision since January 2nd with picking who's in my lineups, which, again, as Kyle said, it's typical coach talk and everything. But on paper, this is the deepest squad that the Union have had, in my opinion, depth-wise. And yeah, Bradley Cornell is definitely going to have difficult decisions to make come Miami next week, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, again, Indiana and Jovan were huge tonight, protecting that back line. And yeah, I'll be curious to see, what does a Jesus Bueno have to do to get into the starting 11?
Right.
I mean, he started with Venezuela the other day, his first official start with Venezuela. So congrats to Jesus for that. But yeah, I mean, the competition's really, really good in the squad. And as the ice machine goes off behind us, you love to see players step up in a must-win game, in my opinion. The one thing I was going to say, though, because I know we're getting close to the hour mark, is can we talk about an early contender for blunder of the week? Why the Suns, and you probably don't know this, Mike, the Sons of Ben voted Andrew Rick as player of the match. Why? He had 1 save. 1 save.
Yeah, he was.
Really?
Yeah.
And shout out to Jillian. I'm not going to say who, but she heard Rick say to somebody on the end of the game, I was not player of the match walking into the locker room. So she said to somebody, like, he was standing there as he walked in, and he just was saying, thank you, but I was not player of the match.
Can I say I did sit in the river and I did not vote for that. Okay. Just take me out of that equation. I was not part of that ridiculous decision. I mean, good for Rick. But Rick has a lot of love in that river end. I mean, Pickle Rick, the whole thing. That they love that kid. So
did they not know who scored the goal? I mean, I know it happened pretty early in this game, but I mean, Jan scores a goal.
Yeah.
He helps keep a clean sheet. Why aren't we voting Jan?
Right. And I think, and again, this is no knock on Andrew, but there was probably 3 or 4 players. I'd even say Harriel on the night just because he had to play multiple positions and he bounced around. And that's very difficult to do as a player, going from one assignment to now you're going here. But beyond that, now I thought Rick was fine. He had that 1 save, but other than that, it was a quiet night.
Yeah.
Which is what you want for a young,
exactly. That's what you want.
Which is what you want for such a young keeper like him. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I would have to agree with you on that.
What about I think João Klaus should be in contention for Blunder of the Week. I don't think they showed this on the after the game, but after the game, Bradley Carnell was walking over to St. Louis, shaking the hands of their staff and players and everything. And João Klaus comes running over and then bumps into Bradley Carnell on purpose, and he has to be pulled off by a couple of St. Louis City players.
Really?
And it's like, why? So that tells me right there that Bradley Carnell and João Klaus maybe didn't have the best relationship in St. Louis City to see him coming in pretty hot and bump into Carnell and have to be pulled away by St. Louis City players.
So you're saying I missed all the good shit, is what you're saying.
You did.
I missed
You did.
And Bradley
something
Carnell was asked about that after the game, didn't want to talk about it, which,
Yep.
I mean, fair play for the question, but yeah, Carnell was never going to say what
No.
that confrontation was.
And I heard from the comments that Bedoya was out for family commitment obligation. I'm assuming he didn't expand on that beyond that, right?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, that's fine. Again, we kind of touched on a few things tonight. I'm really happy with the win. I didn't realize entering this match, and again, because I've been doing so many things, that St. Louis had not given up a goal yet this season.
Yeah.
So again, I wish we could have gotten 2, but to get at least 1 against a team that hasn't given up any, that's great. One question I have for you guys is who will be back next week against Miami? Because
Everybody.
Again, everybody. Okay, I thought some people were still going to be missing. So we have a full roster next week against
Mhm.
Miami.
Yep.
I like that. And I agree with you, Todd. I think today was a must-win game.
It was.
Yeah, and they got the win, and now don't forget, and I know we're jumping ahead, but last year the Union played really well down in Miami. Unfortunate to concede a late goal. They had chances to tie the game up by multiple points last year, and hopefully they come with that same energy down in Miami.
Yeah.
Again, you can argue this roster is better than what it was last year. It's better depth than what they've had in quite some time, but at the end of the day, you're happy with the 3 points, 12 points, and that should sit you on top, or at least still in second place in the Eastern Conference, and your second clean sheet of the season. So, I mean, all in all, really good stuff on the Union tonight.
As of right now, they are at the top of the Eastern Conference. Charlotte in second and Miami in third.
One thing I had mentioned before you guys had joined was the fact that Miami has really owned Union of late. They've won 4 of the last 5 matches against Union. And again, one thing I kind of touched upon before you guys joined was, who is this team's Jose Martinez? You're going to have the big name stars down there. Yeah, so Kyle, I guess I'll ask you, since Todd just talked, how confident are you that this team's going to step up? Because this is a team that's owned you pretty much lately. This is a team that Bedoya basically said, we were starstruck. We really didn't know what to do in the Leagues Cup game. Who are you looking for in this next match to really set the tone? Maybe even a bit of that Jose Martinez against LAFC moment with the bloody lip. Who's that guy who's going to step up for you this coming week against Miami? And also, is Messi out this week? Michael asks.
Messi?
Yeah, is Messi playing?
Yeah, I mean, he is hurt, but I guess we'll see from Javier Mascherano what his availability is for this weekend.
Okay, go ahead, Kyle.
I will go with Jovan. Again, I think with the defensive mids, I think they're going to set the tone. Love to see what Quinn Sullivan brings. I thought Bruno brought a lot. I'd love to see him get another start. I thought he played well in the night. So it's going to ultimately come down to, if they can play like tonight, they stand a chance. If they play like they did against Nashville, Miami's going to run all over them. So I think this team's right now confident. This was a good win. You can see the passion when that final whistle blew again tonight. They really wanted this. And, I'm looking for a very competitive match. I think the Union can bring it to them. But, again, it's going to have to come down to neutralizing Suarez. Messi plays. And then some of the young players that they got, those U22s that are really, really coming up.
Very good.
If they can neutralize them, they stand a chance. So,
well, that's the thing. I mean, listen, I think whenever you have a new coach, consistency is the most important thing you're looking for, right? Whether they're a great team, or an average team, you want to see consistent presence and energy every single week.
For sure,
They have a good start to the season. Starting 12 points in 5 games, that's fantastic.
I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest, in my season prediction, I had them at 5 points. So they're already 7 points.
I didn't have them anywhere near this. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
all
So we're ahead of
of our.
schedule right now. That's a good thing. Having said that, I think they're still learning Carnell's system. They're still learning, Carnell, and so I think that's the other thing. Maybe we haven't seen the full version of what this Union team can be.
Yeah. Listen, we have a lot to talk about with Miami next week. For
Mhm.
those of you who have been watching Across the Pitch for a couple of years now, we typically interview Alex Winley, who covers Inter Miami down there. I had to text her this week to see if she's available to join us. So we'll see if we can have her either on a post game show or at some point between this Sunday and maybe this Saturday rather than after that. So we'll try to get that insight from her. But for me, I just want to see if they lose down in Miami, that's fine. I just want to see them compete against Miami. And the thing is, though, if they win against Miami, this fan base is going to start they're really just going to start taking off. But one thing I talked about at the beginning of the show and before we kind of wrap things up was the energy in Super Park was better. I mean, you guys are both there as well. I thought Super Park's energy was great tonight. And for me being the River End, it was the most energetic that River End has been for me personally since before last season. Because last year I was in that River End and it was dead quiet. I thought the energy was great again. How did you guys feel being in Super Park tonight?
I mean, I think winning and being in the lead cures all things. That's all I'm going to say with that. I think when you have the lead and you're winning, I think that cures all. Plus, it's early in the season, and I will even say like last year at this time, energy was better. If they can keep it, the River End and even the stadium, when there was a corner kick early on in the game, it sounded like almost like a big time MLS regular season match with the Union chants. So
Yeah.
there was good energy, but again, winning cures everything.
Todd, I saw you smirk. Any reaction there?
Yeah, the second half wasn't great. It's pretty quiet.
I was not there for the second half, so it was my fault for leaving. So that's it. Todd, go ahead.
Kai Wagner had to raise his arms up and lifting the voices off of the fans and say, "Come on, get loud! Like we're about to win this game." So that's all I'll say on that.
That's fine. I'm gonna bring up your little tags here. Todd Lewis, plug yourself away. Anything coming up this week?
I don't know, dude.
That's great. No, Todd may or may not have anything this week. That's fine.
I'll have a match recap out. I got to go and listen to what the players said after the game again to see if what I've been trying to do is a match recap and then a second article with like interviews from, quotes from Coach Carnell and players and whatnot. So I'll see if there's anything clip worthy to potentially make a second post. But yeah, we'll do a live podcast tomorrow, probably 9:00, day after the game, like I normally do. I told Kyle, I said this is going to be the easiest goals breakdown video all season. So
you got one.
One goal, and it might be just the Jacob Glesnes highlight video. Honestly,
for sure.
He played great. So yeah, I mean, not too much. So yeah, I should be semi quiet week for me, but yeah, you have all my stuff there. It's a Todd's Life on Twitter, Free Kick Pod, wherever you find your podcast, the Free Kick, youtube.com/freekickpod, writing thefreekick.substack.com. And last thing I think I'll say before I go, communications team from St. Louis City, top notch people, top notch.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I don't know where that comes from, but okay. I mean,
well, they came up to me. They came up to me and said they had listened to my podcast because I had Matt Baker on my podcast from St. Louis City this week. And I was talking to Dave Leno about that. And one of the comms people, shout out Mark, comes up to me and says, "Dude, I listened to your podcast this week." He's like, "You did a great job." And I listened to the show with when you were on Matt. And he's like, "You do great work." And so, yeah, that was a nice little shout out. And we got talking about the different communications departments around MLS, how some are better than others. And he had told Kyle and I, he's like, probably won't be next year that you guys play in St. Louis, but the year after that in St. Louis, you guys are more than welcome to come down. And so Yeah, good to
I think we might have to
see.
make a trip.
Yeah, 100%. Good to see our work being appreciated. And yeah, shout out to good communications departments like the Philadelphia Union.
Todd Lewis is a mini celebrity. It's
Maybe.
really the point of this whole story here. Todd's just getting recognition everywhere. Kyle, I know you're a season ticket holder as similar to myself, who has a season ticket now. Sons of Ben was decent. KSU not even there. I did not see KSU at all tonight. Have they been absent so far this year? Or are you just not? That tracks?
Correct.
Yep.
That tracks.
Just gonna end it with that. We have good
I
relationship.
heard they were
with KSU.
protesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I heard they were protesting that they weren't happy with ownership and happy with the way that the offseason went.
Okay.
Okay. Well, listen, KSU, to my favorite title so far, nothing for this person's username. Just nothing says KSU not there. Well, I guess they weren't for that reason, but KSU certainly missed. I enjoy their presence every week. And then Michael says match preview with battered herons, Todd, for you as well. Kyle, anything coming up this week for you, sir?
We'll probably record tomorrow since we're heading down to Fort Lauderdale next Saturday.
Yes.
I'll have probably a recap, and then I'll do my travel article some point this week as well. Jillian might have some stuff for you too, and we might have another U2 interview coming up this week as well.
Love it. And here
For
we
the
got
players.
Kyle's and Jillian's handles right here. Again, I appreciate you guys both hopping on. Both of you get home safe. Todd, I'm in Maryland now almost twice a week, so we gotta get lunch or something
There
one of
you
these
go.
Fridays or Wednesdays when I'm down in Annapolis and Susquehanna State Park now. Todd, not too far from you. Not too
Susquehanna,
far.
nice, dude. It's a
Susquehanna
good place
State
to
Park.
hike. It's a good place to hike.
You're
That's
not
where
too far from Jillian and I.
That's
He's
where my
lying.
office is every other Friday, Susquehanna State Park. So you just give me a call.
Susquehanna, dude. Yeah, that's we'll have to talk off air, but
We'll talk off air. It can't be releasing too much information with the people watching. But
hey, one thing we got to do though, got to go to an Annapolis Blues game once the season starts. So
There you go.
all right, every Wednesday I'm there. So you just tell me when. That's it.
there we go.
All right, everybody. I appreciate you joining me in the comments today. The Philadelphia Union are 4-0-1 or 4-1-0, however you want to sort that, the win-loss column. 12 points to start the season. Fantastic start for the Philadelphia Union. Something we're not used to because they don't typically start the season out that strong. They win 1-0 tonight against St. Louis City, and then we have Miami next week. It will be an away match. I will have a post-game show again next Saturday night. So please join us, Todd and Kyle, as always, Jillian as well. More than welcome. That's it. Philadelphia Union, 1-0. DOOP. Got the dubs.
It's a dub.
Go Union.